This week, Stellaris has announced the release date for its First Contact DLC. Activision Blizzard and Microsoft have been seriously spicy, bland, subservient, and defiant this week. And then there's Atomic Heart.
Nick here to remind you that if you lie to the mold mother, she'll put spores in your amygdala.
Hi, I'm Josh, and I'm terrified of what Ghost is going to do to Mario.
My name's Andy. You're watching Video Game Tango. We've got some video games and other things.
Other things?
It's news. News.
Wow, that's surprising. What do you got for us?
News is an acronym for new events, weather, and sports.
Oh, I thought it was never enunciate while sweating.
I hate that. I wish it was just, these are new. This is new. Here's the news. Look at all of the news. Look at all the news.
Ruined it.
It's like how we look back at talkies, the old, radio movie, whatever, early 20th century, like, talkies, that's a stupid name. But yet we watch movies.
Yeah. they move, so they're movies.
Made that connection recently.
Yeah.
Like, that's dumb.
We do not watch cinema. We watch movies. They're moving. Look, it's pictures. They move.
Smellies and touchies.
Well,
what do we got in news?
Everybody's got uncles, so yeah, sure.
Oh, my. Okay.
We've got Stellaris.
We're going to steer away from uncles and go into space where there are no uncles. Stellaris.
We've got some Activision Blizzard news.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We've got other stuff. Go ahead.
Nuclear muscles, I believe, is after that. But no, Stellaris, final announcement, release on March 14th. I'm prepositioning before the predicate or whatever. Stellaris' new DLC, First Contact, has an official release date, attempt to, March 14th. This story pack is going to be released for $14.99, which is around the normal price of Stellaris packs. But this is hot on the heels of the Orion 3.6 update, where they overhauled the spaceship design, much needed, in my opinion, to break very, very, very stale meta. With this new story pack, they are going to be expounding upon the pre-FTL civilizations, even allowing you to play as them with 3 new origin stories that you can pick. We have Broken Shackles off first. Quote, as the survivors of a crashed slaver ship, the Broken Shackles allows you to build a diverse empire with multiple species from across the galaxy, embarking on a quest to find various homeworlds as long as you escape the prying eyes of your former captors. So the idea of a multi-xenospecies band trying to make their way without getting caught by the more powerful people out there in the void. There's also the Payback Origin, civilization being a result of a civilization that did not invent faster than light travel, but instead was invaded by and repelled an invader from the stars. With access to their advanced technology, your empire is now ready to enter the galactic stage and find out just who else is out there.
I'm just saying, how embarrassing for you. You show up to a planet, try to invade, and they're like, not today, motherfucker.
That's an Independence Day situation, right?
Raytheon, bitch. Here we got it. And then, Okay.
And then, I think the one I'm most curious about, Fear of the Dark. A large portion of your population has embraced isolationism and xenophobia ever since a planet in your solar system suffered a quote-unquote incident. Will you ignore their concerns and explore the stars, making quote-unquote friends along the way? Or will you appease their isolationism in order to grow your civilization even more powerful? So you can imagine us being Earth, and one day Venus is gone.
Yeah.
It explodes, and half the people on Earth are like, that's really terrifying. We're going to go hide away. Please don't contact aliens. And then you have the choice, right? Stellaris is a storytelling engine. It's in these vein of games where, you can play the meta and be really strong and powerful, but that gets bored quickly. So these narrative storytelling DLC packs that they put out are some of my favorite. It's always nice to have new content, but for me, that's what mods are for, right?
Yeah.
To be adding these things that allow you to role play unique situations, it gives a fresh breath to the game.
I was going to say, it seems like these are tailor made for getting in your role playing. designed for it.
Definitely. I mean, you're starting off on the wrong foot, right? If you're starting off as a pre-FTL civilization, you're hundreds of years behind the rest of the players. So, all the more satisfaction and catharsis if you manage to top the charts at the end of a game, if you even make it that far. On top of this, they are also debuting their new cloaking system, cloaking being an age-old trope in sci-fi, but this is new to Stellaris, being able to make not only your civilian ships, but your military ships invisible to enemy sensors, both in closed and hostile space, which is going to be extremely satisfying and frustrating if I had to predict how that's going to pan out.
Well, it's really going to change up the idea behind the combat in Stellaris. Instead of just racing to a choke point, well, suddenly a choke point doesn't really matter if 12 cloaked battleships sneak by it and suddenly are in your core.
Yeah, sensors are going to be much more important. Nebulas, which hide location and make sensors harder, are going to be even that much more important. Which, again, breaking the stale meta of Stellaris, I am all for it. So that is exciting, just a couple weeks away. And on top of that, like I said, Orion 3.6 came out, I think, last December. I haven't really had time to sink my teeth into it, but this on top of the ship rework update is going to make for some new fun Stellaris play. So if you haven't tried it yet, now is a good time. Get your basics in before the story pack releases in a couple weeks, and you'll be good to go.
And I tell you what Paradox needs to do here is get a monthly membership to get all the DLCs for this game, because vanilla is a completely different game than what they're offering with all the DLCs and all the updates. The problem with that is that's a $240 investment, or a $250, $260 investment to get all the bells and whistles. Now, because they're already offering a monthly subscription for Crusader Kings 2 and Europa 4, even, I believe. Yeah. So, boy, that sure would be some sweet peaches if they offered that up.
Apparently, just as of a few days ago, they're now doing it for Hearts of Iron as well. So the fact that they're now doing it for 3 different games tells me that the subscription service for DLC is probably panning out.
Yeah.
Which means that if Hearts of Iron goes as well, I would not be surprised to see this happen for Stellaris as well. There's also always the option, if you do play multiplayer, whoever's hosting the game, you get access to all their DLCs.
That is also
a nice little
generous
cherry on top.
Yeah,
so
nice.
If you happen to have someone that's really into Stellaris and you want to try it, play a game with them, and they'll likely have all the DLCs.
Yeah, make one good Stellaris friend on Reddit, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I'm sure there's great Discords for finding people to play with, and
yeah, for sure.
So with that out of the way, we got Mr. Old Richard Cockdick to talk about, right?
Boy, so not so much Bobby Kotick, more along. Man, there's so much. There's so much. So it's been a little while since we've addressed Activision Blizzard's issues, conflicts, and etc. And for a little while there, it seemed pretty quiet from their corner. That all seems to have changed in especially the last couple weeks. My God. So. First off, they have settled one of their biggest lawsuits as far as the sexual harassment goes, and it looks like between workers and people in the company that may have been impacted by that, that's been settled. Okay. $35 million. Seeming like to me that's Activision Blizzard pocket change, but at the end of the day, it doesn't seem like any real work has been done within the company so far. We'll see. They haven't made a statement as far as the lawsuit's completion or their payout or really anything. Haven't really talked about how things may have changed. They use vagary like, we're really working on our company culture, but still nothing concrete.
We're really sorry.
Essentially, yeah. Insubstantial.
There's a lot of pretty words, a lot of friendly words, a lot of copacetic words.
A lot of company-friendly words.
Exactly. There's not a lot of... There is a lot of action, and none of it's friendly. It's union busting, and it's time crunching, and... Yeah, it's the same toxic work environment, just more suppressed in, you know?
So let's talk toxic work environment. So the people at Activision Blizzard, for the most part, have been able to work from home since the beginnings of COVID, and have changed their entire work-life balance in doing so. Been saving a lot of money. Also, no more commute, saving a lot of time. Again, no more commute. Not having to pay for fuel to get there. Seems like people at Activision Blizzard are prospering a little bit better than they had previously. Being that classically, especially our developers, and we'll get to it later, testers and the sort, are relatively underpaid compared to industry standard. That's what Blizzard has always called the Blizzard tax. Working at Activision Blizzard is a gift in and of itself, and you should accept the pay that you receive.
It opens doors for you.
Yeah,
just being here is
that's been the mantra for a long time.
Your future.
That means that a lot of these people having to commute, because they're in Anaheim, California. It's an incredibly expensive place.
Right
to live.
around the East Coast, they live in a part of Maryland and have to drive 2.5 hours to get to work. So yeah.
So a lot of these people do have hour to several hour commutes to get to work back and forth every day. So they've saved a lot of money in this work from home environment. However, the senior executives at Activision Blizzard have decided that it is time to return to the office, otherwise known as RTO, a really nice, pleasant way to say it. So
acronym.
They are practicing RTO, return to office. They are now requiring their employees to be there at least 3 days a week in office, still allowing some work from home for up to 2 days a week. This doesn't include people that have religious or health exemptions or were hired specifically to do work from home. But older employees, people that have worked in office before, or if there were no stipulations in your contract to do work from home, you are now expected to report back to the office.
Sticky wicket.
Yep.
What religion exempts you from working in
I don't know. That wasn't specified.
Sabbath.
So that wasn't. Yeah. Well, sure. Sure.
Point taken.
Yeah. So it wasn't specified.
Okay.
But that was stated by Mike Ybarra, the president at Blizzard Entertainment. So, boy, oh boy,
sounds like a good religion.
This all intertwines, and I'm trying not to miss any of it here, because every piece of this puzzle has another piece that just says "fuck you" to Activision Blizzard or its employees. Or to the FTC, the EU Commission, or the CMA in the UK. It's also very intertwined. So, on the note of RTO, we have people from Monolith and ArenaNet. ArenaNet, most well known for Guild Wars 2. Monolith, those guys have made the Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War series, Fear. Okay. Those are some of their more popular games.
That was WB.
What? That was their publisher. These are the developers.
Oh, okay.
This is development studio.
Still talking about Blizzard Activision. Okay.
Yeah, we still are. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Monolith Productions are maintaining our stance. This is directly from Lori Hyrup, a senior executive at Monolith. We at Monolith Productions are maintaining our stance on giving our developers the choice of how they want to work on-site, hybrid, or remote. Where folks work from has not slowed our development one bit, as our team works hard on Wonder Woman. Josh Davis from ArenaNet says, the Guild Wars 2 team at ArenaNet is growing this year, and we support flexible work options, including full remote and hybrid. We're digital first. We'll be hiring in-game design, engineering, cinematics, QA, and more. All of this is in response to the tweet that Activision Blizzard put out on their plans to implement RTO. So we've got ArenaNet, and we've got there's actually a lot of developers pushing out there saying, hey, guys, Activision, Blizzard, if you don't want to work there anymore, you don't have to. In fact, you can continue living where you live, have no commute, and work from home. Just come work for us instead, where in all likelihood they might get paid better.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, fortunately, there are other development studios reaching out and saying, hey, we do want the talent of Activision Blizzard amongst our ranks. Come join us.
Yeah.
So fortunately, there is an out if you want to work for a number of game studios that are looking for your talent at Activision Blizzard.
I'm just spitballing here. I'm not a financials expert.
Sure.
But wouldn't Activision Blizzard theoretically save money in building costs, like heating, and stuff like that, like all the
Yes.
Additional maintenance for people being there, all the things that come with having a fully functioning 100% staffed building all the time, versus letting people like save money on a commute and work comfortably, like in a place where they're comfortable.
I have to rent those offices, man.
So here's the thing. I have answers for you.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
Activision Blizzard owns their offices. Speaking specifically about the Anaheim headquarters, they built those. So no, until they get their RTI, there's no fucking way they're letting people work from home. There just isn't. And that's true of RTO. For a lot of these big businesses, return to office has been, it's not just affecting Activision Blizzard. It's affecting industries worldwide right now. These big businesses telling people, hey, you have to come back so we can legitimize our cost in renting this building or having built this building.
Yeah.
It's happening everywhere. This is not unique to Activision Blizzard.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. And I understand there are some jobs that you need to be there in person for. Mm-hmm. I get that. Game tester doesn't seem like one of them.
No, it's
not. What you're costing me $300 a week in commuting when Jesus, no, that makes okay. I mean, I guess I get it because it's like, well, we built this building, so.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's an excuse. At this point, we are talking about a multi-billion-dollar company.
I mean, couldn't you theoretically hire people and be like, hey, you guys have to work here because that's in your contract now or whatever, and just hire more employees because you have people working at home, and then you could employ more people. Sure.
And there's a lot of things that you could do.
Crunch on your employees.
Well, you're talking about having an appropriate level of staff, which big companies don't do anymore, Josh.
Okay. I mean, I'm not like financials guy or anything. I'm just spitballing here. Yeah. So
there's also something to be said about what these people think, right? These high level executives, they talk about workplace culture, company culture. It's really hard to continue to, what's it called? Clockwork Orange, what they do to that guy.
The phrase for the eye-open propaganda stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking for that. To assimilate. It's really hard to assimilate. That's not what I was looking for, but it works. It's really hard to assimilate somebody into what you want as a company and company culture without being able to be there and physically dump it down their throats, to have those kinds of messages displayed throughout your building, to have those kinds of on-hands, in-person meetings that the company wants.
Hey, how can I pressure you into drinking at lunch if you're not fucking in this building?
Well, exactly. That's of Activision Blizzard. Sure. There are a lot of companies that don't do that kind of thing, but, I get what you're saying. The indoctrination is really difficult if you're not seeing your employees in person. So that's, ultimately, come on, that's the agenda. I don't think it's far-fetched to think that way, and I don't think I'm a conspiracy theorist.
Not at all. Not at all. That makes sense.
These are the kinds of people who throw around the word pliability.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Mike Ybarra had an all-hands meeting to address some of the employees' concerns. Mike Ybarra is now the president of Blizzard Entertainment. He took the mantle a few months ago. And Mike Ybarra has been known, for the most part, by most people as being one of the good guys at Activision Blizzard. And so as far as management goes, he seems to have broken against the mold and been kind of anti-indoctrination and more along the lines of like, you do you bring your own culture, and that's what makes Activision Blizzard unique. And he's always been kind of a supportive character. And developers love him. They make excuses to put caricatures and that kind of thing of him in their games all the time. So it's interesting that Mike Ybarra, leading this all-hands meeting, said some of the things that he said. So the company's decided to cut employees' profit-sharing bonus by almost half, despite Blizzard reporting its strongest quarter in years, thanks to the launch of Diablo Immortal, Overwatch 2, and the Dragonflight expansion to World of Warcraft.
Wow.
Yeah, so understandably, that can be frustrating because that is how he opened the on-hands meeting to address the RTO complaints. So,
well, honestly, dude, when you got the worst news, you send out the guy everybody likes to give it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, maybe it won't be as bad because, it's Mikey. He's fought for us, right? Right? I mean, no.
Corporate overlords,
Yep.
They've happened. So in response to some of the complaints that employees had at the all hands meeting against the profit sharing issues they had was Mike Ybarra suggested that executive bonuses have likewise seen cuts, stating, if you think executives are making a lot of money and you aren't, you're living in a myth. That's a direct quote from Mike Ybarra in this meeting.
Bollocks.
Ybarra also seemingly took aim at several departments at Blizzard, dismissing customer service and quality assurance as not long-term disciplines, despite their importance to game development and operation and the presence of both departments in the room.
QA?
Hold on. However, a representative for the company reached out to game developer, that's who originally wrote this article, following its initial report on Ybarra's statements, clarifying that he was in fact referring to entry-level roles.
Oh, sure.
Sure. Mm-hmm. So, discussing the company's plans to avoid key talent who prefer remote working, this is going back to RTO, who prefer remote working leaving the company, Ybarra stated, at the end of the day, we want people to be happy. And if decisions about being happy don't align with what we're doing and or with where we're going, and you won't be happy, then you'll have to do what will make you happy.
Corporate speak. Yeah.
Corporate speak for, hey, if you don't like it, get the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Not surprising. That's what happens when you don't have unions.
Yep.
I mean, they fucking try and crush it every time one comes up.
Exactly.
I mean, that's...
Not that they're not trying. I'm just saying.
That's jeez.
Well, union busting brings us to the Activision Blizzard acquisition from Microsoft. Microsoft, in their weird, nearly heroic ways lately, have said one of the reasons they look so forward to acquiring Activision Blizzard is so that they can promote their pro-union attitude within the company.
BS.
To Microsoft's credit, they have been relatively pro-union in the last year or two. Of course, after post-acquisition, who fucking knows, right?
Yeah, relative to what?
Right.
Gorillas with sea urchins on sticks.
No, they have legitimately been pro-union, but
Sure.
there has, and outspokenly so, and there are a lot of unions popping up within Microsoft campus, especially in the Xbox division.
Honestly, them being actually neutral is, in this case...
It's really good.
It's actually, it is pro-union, because, I mean... Amazon changed the timing of stoplights to prevent unionization. Starbucks fires people. I mean, it's there is some dirty union busting tricks going on out there, and we get to hear about them all the time.
All the time.
Or maybe, maybe you don't. But they are happening out there. So the fact that they're remaining at the very least neutral, it's a positive stance. I mean, you got to give credit where it's due, even though it's to Microsoft. I don't like it, but
right. I'll
be fair about it, I suppose.
I will give them that for now.
For now, yeah. I mean, the moment it changes, I'll change my, change too.
So seeing Microsoft's attitude lately in wanting to only show themselves as the good guy, as the positive force in the gaming industry, I can see them doing that all looking at potential costs and pitfalls. So, okay, when it comes to FTC filings, as far as the Activision Blizzard acquisition goes, do we let them unionize? Is that going to be of cost benefit to us when we talk to the FTC and we can explain to them, hey, look at our pro-union stance, look at our happy workers, etc. So, are they essentially allowing this unionization to happen in order to make this acquisition happen? I'm not convinced that that's not the case yet. Simply because Microsoft is doing everything in their power to make this acquisition happen. So let's get into that a little bit. Josh, you brought up an article earlier that you shared in the Discord with us.
Yeah, Microsoft's president and vice chairman, Brad Smith, announced today, he took it to Twitter, that Nintendo and Microsoft have entered a binding contract to bring Call of Duty for the next 10 years with full content, full features release, same-day release to the Nintendo Switch platform. the problem with that is that Microsoft has at this point no power to do that, but it is a binding contract should the FTC and the UK and the EU, I can't remember their acronyms, if they should relent. Now, so I mean, Nintendo signed the contract. They've signed it. It's good to go. They're ready to roll on it. Now, Brad Smith, in what I mean it's an obvious ploy. It's a prop. Definitely used it as a prop.
Oh yeah.
Actually had the Sony's contract there. Like Sony is going to
in
hand, ready to go with him.
Okay.
Like Sony's going to run up and sign it or something on the stage, right? But now they are pulling out all the stops on this, and like Microsoft is waving the banner of, hey, it's going to be, especially Call of Duty, it's going to be available. It's going to be available. It's going to be available. That's because the chief concerns are availability. Now, I understand mergers in general is bad for consumers. But with what we're hearing with, I don't know, with what we're hearing with Activision Blizzard, I think Microsoft would be a less toxic environment for the employees as a whole. So I don't know. They are definitely pulling out all the stops for this. Yeah. But Microsoft did raise, I mean, they're kind of trashing themselves a little bit too. They did raise a fair point though. They have Microsoft has, I think, 20 plus games available on Sony, and there are 2 Sony games available on Xbox. So if the idea of not sharing titles is the big thing there, well, I mean, it sounds like someone's already not sharing.
Right. Yeah. And that is definitely something that they're flexing at these hearings. So they also mentioned that currently, as far as console sales go, there is a 70-30 split amongst the console manufacturers, that being Microsoft and Sony. Microsoft being of the lesser of the two. 30% of console sales have been, and this is roughly, of course, have been the Xbox, and close to 70 have been the PlayStation. So they do bring all that up. Those all are relatively sound arguments when you're talking about exclusivity. The biggest issue that the FTC, that the CMA, and the EU are putting forward is that exclusivity reduces competition, right? Or, brings issue into competition. When Sony is desperately holding on to their titles and keeping them console exclusive in a lot of cases, or at least exclusive to their platforms and PC. Definitely not sharing with Xbox.
Yeah. I mean, the PC release is so rare that each one is celebrated these days. I mean, I was over the moon over Spider-Man. I just about shit my pants for God of War. Mm-hmm. I'm holding my breath and hoping it doesn't take 4 years for God of War 2 to come out on it, like it did for God of War, the remake there. So
we'll see. I mean, Sony's dedication to putting titles on the PC is relatively new.
It has been, yeah, sure, it has been. But then, if we're talking about sharing, I feel one's already not sharing.
I'm just saying, don't hold your breath.
Yeah, I know.
So on top of the deal that Microsoft signed with Nintendo, Microsoft also just yesterday signed a deal with Nvidia. Nvidia and Nintendo were both vocal opponents to this Microsoft acquisition. And now they're in agreement with it because they're part of the deal.
Yeah.
So Nvidia now has a 10-year binding deal that if the acquisition is to pull through, that they will also get day one launch titles from Xbox on their cloud gaming service. Now, currently, the cloud gaming services are both bringing in about 25 million unique players. And currently, cloud gaming for Xbox is 9% of its total revenue. I don't have figures on the revenue from Nvidia. That said, both of these services are built on essentially the same technologies, but they work. They're competitors, right? We have Xbox, who's trying to go forward in cloud gaming. We have Nvidia, who's been doing cloud gaming, honestly, for a few years at this point.
That's GeForce Now.
That's GeForce Now. Yeah. Fairly big because they have a free option. They also have a paid option that allows you to do higher resolution, give you access to more games. But now all day one launches for Xbox will be available on Nvidia's streaming service GeForce Now. So that's the deal that they've signed. That includes their back catalog.
I was just I want to get in a finer point there real quick. You said all Xbox titles.
All Xbox titles.
Does that include Starfield?
That is a good question. I would assume yes in this case.
Okay. Now
that is an assumption because I haven't read the document. The document's not available for public viewing, right? There may be exclusions, but from all articles that I've read, the verbiage that is being used, quoted by executives, is all.
Okay, because I mean, Starfield being a Xbox console exclusive has been like a major touting point. It's like, oh well, that's it's the most anticipated game of the year, and it's not coming out on PlayStation.
Yeah.
So I mean, if it's coming out other places, though, I mean, all Xbox games. That's not even Activision Blizzard stuff. That's so okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to. Sorry.
So I mean, we're looking at Nvidia is going to have essentially.
Boy, that's a big deal for their
it's a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes them the better purchase, right? Because if you're looking at the same dollar per month, which both of the services are $10 per month to get Xbox PC Pass versus the GeForce Now, both of them $10 a month. Nvidia already has a library of 1,500 games, some of which are going to be identical to stuff that they're now receiving under this new deal. But they already have a catalog of 1,500 games, plus what Xbox is throwing on top of it for the same price. It seems like a no-brainer as far as cloud gaming goes. Now, Nvidia doesn't offer the what cloud gaming or what Xbox Cloud does, in that you are able to download the games from Game Pass. You have to stream the games when you're using GeForce Now versus being able to download them locally. So that is a pretty big difference. So
it's a big difference.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. So there is a solid difference between them. But if we are to look at just catalog alone, that makes GeForce Now extremely competitive, especially at a $10 price point. That's less than Netflix per month.
Yeah.
So to consider that Xbox is willing to go that far and to give them that much shows that they really want this acquisition to go through.
They want this deal.
It is worth potential billions additionally for them to get this deal.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the biggest deals in history. So, I mean, there's only, I think we were talking about it earlier, a bare dozen.
Yeah, there's like 10, a dozen.
10 to 12 that are larger than it. And most of them are like military, chemicals, oil and gas.
Like the purchase of Dow Chemical, the purchase of Raytheon. Those are the kinds of mergers and acquisitions that are bigger than the Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition. And exclusively that. This is huge. It's just gigantic. So yeah, that's the kind of artillery that they're throwing at the EU Commission in order to make this thing happen. EU Commission has already said no to the deal. However, the EU Commission, just like the FTC, can be countersued essentially to allow them to present additional arguments later on. What they're getting ready for, I think, is going against the UK CMA, and I forget every time what that acronym means. It is the Competition and Markets Authority in the UK.
That's rich.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I said earlier, the only reason Egypt has pyramids is because the English couldn't figure out how to get them back to London. So, I mean, that for them to regulate anybody else is, it's
laughable.
Boy, that's a spot of tea if I've ever heard of one. So.
It's a good thing they're white.
That being said,
you can get away with that.
In the UK,
my grandmother was English. It's fine.
Yeah, it's true.
In the UK, what the CMA has to say is final. There are no rebuttals. You are not allowed to come back later with new information. If they deny an acquisition or merger, it is denied permanently. So it looks like they are throwing
Clarkson's farm bullshit is what this is. Local council nonsense.
That's right. It's local council nonsense. Yeah. So Activision Blizzard Microsoft is throwing everything into this acquisition. They are now willing to spend and work with and manipulate as many people as possible to get them on board. At this point, it is only the regulators and only Sony that seem to oppose this deal.
Well, and it's weird because the regulators' complaints sound specifically like Sony's complaints.
Yeah, they say it's going to be anti-competitive, but I think they are failing to see that, because logically speaking, right? If you were to look at the amount of exclusives that Sony has versus the amount of exclusives that Xbox has, you'd say, okay, well, that's anti-competitive.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. Versus what they're saying here, which is you're going to, like, Microsoft is already massive, right? They own a good portion of their gaming space. Along with Activision Blizzard, they're going to own that much more of it. Of course, I see problems with that, right? I think there are inherent problems with them owning that much of gaming.
In games revenue, they are still third behind Tencent and top of the hill Sony.
Yes.
So,
they'd be ahead of Sony after the acquisition.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So, I don't know. There's a lot going on. I think we got through all of it. Let's see. Sony has said some things in court. So this happened during the closed door EU meeting. We do have some quotes here. Sony's lawyers have accused Microsoft of obvious harassment, in particular for requesting performance reviews of Sony executives. So Microsoft has called Sony asking for performance reviews of their executives in order to throw them in these court filings. I don't know what the goal there would be.
I don't even understand what that means.
I can't extrapolate further for you because that's not disclosed. But that is apparently one of the tactics being used by Microsoft lawyers in this whole thing.
Stuff.
Yeah, it's weird. That part almost seems like smear campaign kind of bullshit, you know. So that's according to Axios and Kotaku. Sony says that's ridiculous. This is not an employment case. In response to that, so
like, what do you? We need the metrics on your CEOs.
Yeah.
What do you?
Well, I mean, they're just trying to show that our metrics are better. So for the employees of Activision Blizzard, it's going to be it's a gain working here or something. I don't maybe I don't know. Again, that's just
Mike Ybarra's got a 4.9 on Yelp. So, you know.
Yeah. Real quick, also, Bobby Kotick has been just everywhere lately. I've seen way too much of that guy's face lately because
fuck you, Bobby.
It's my job to kind of listen to what he says, and he's been saying a lot. He was on MSNBC recently. He's been on Fox News. He's been making the news rounds, and he's been saying some pretty fucking outlandish stuff.
Fox Entertainment, please.
Yes. Fair. He's been saying some pretty fucking crazy stuff. First and foremost was watching him on NBC where he said the two best gaming companies in the world are ByteDance and Tencent. And of course, when you hear that, you think, okay, well, I mean, what good games are they pumping out? I know them for microtransactions and etc. Well, of course, this is Bobby Kotick they're talking about. So these companies are
based on how much money they make.
100%. These companies are only being evaluated on their wealth by Bobby Kotick. And to be fair, that's his job. That's his job, is to enrich the company as much as possible. It's really interesting the things that he has to say. So he talks about how ByteDance and Tencent are really, truly the only competition that the Western gaming studios and publishers have to deal with. And I thought, honestly, that is an interesting point. So he also talks about Nintendo, and he talks about the isolationist practices of Nintendo, ByteDance, and Tencent, in so much as they rarely work with Western developers unless it's simply to act as publisher to their games for localization purposes in China, and that's also regulatory stuff from China. You have to use a Chinese publisher to publish a Western game in China. So it's
apparently ByteDance owns TikTok.
They do, yeah. That's their big call to fame, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that explains a lot.
Well, yeah, they're extremely rich. They own TikTok. So yeah, it's interesting because he says this. He says that that these regulators are being anti-competitive, and not them. He's casting the stones at the regulators, the FTC, EU
limiting
committee, and
profit.
etc. Well, it's because he says that the Western companies should be working together I hate to fucking give any credit to Bobby Kotick because like everything he says has an underhanded second agenda, right? But at the end of the day, he goes on to NBC and he preaches crossplay and how he says that we should be working more together to be bringing these good experiences to players that can all play together. That's very Phil Spencer-ish talk.
What does it even mean?
Well,
It's
he
the
says
broadest statement you could say without
it is
hurting anyone's opinion.
Sure, but he's, at the end of the day, I agree with that statement. I don't agree necessarily with where it's coming from because he's looking at only a profitability standpoint. But it's hard. It's a weird argument because he says that Western developers should be working together to do that and have that as the ultimate outcome, in that you should be able to play Call of Duty with your friends, whether you're playing on an Xbox, a PC, or a PlayStation, or in this case, a Nintendo. Now,
Is that what he meant?
yeah,
Full crossplay.
yeah, that's what he's talking about. That is what the goal is going forward, and that their only true competition are Nintendo, and only in so much as they're relatively isolationist, and Chinese gaming companies for the same reason.
I mean, yeah. As a gamer, if I was on the Switch playing Call of Duty, I don't want to play against people that are on PC. I don't want to play against
fair.
people who are on Xbox.
Yeah.
Bobby Kotick's never played a video game in his life. If he's used fucking Joy-Cons to play Modern Warfare, he wouldn't be saying that.
Bobby Kotick is very well known for playing Candy Crush.
Oh,
but
sure,
he's also the CEO of King.
His competitors' heads.
Yeah. Well, he's the CEO of King.
Okay,
so
then,
that's his game.
never mind,
So it's really interesting. It's a very complex machine happening right now. Like, this acquisition is upsetting the gaming industry as a whole. At the end of the day, like,
big deal.
Things are changing in order to make this acquisition happen, and it happening in like every part of the gaming space. I'm starting to wonder if Sony started putting their titles on PC exclusively to combat this kind of thing, so they could say things like, we are not against cross compatibility. Look at what we've been doing lately, putting our games on PC.
Probably right on that.
It's like there's so much high level thinking at this point, like, because we're talking about executives and lawyers here, and in terms of profitability, you have to look at it from that standpoint, not like what's going to be best for the gamer, but what's going to be the most profitable. And when you start looking at potential profitability, then you start looking at the defensive and offensive tactics that these companies are using, and start to wonder, like, where is this going to bring the games industry as a whole? Like, what does this look like in the next couple of years?
In my quick opinion, what you're asking is where these various types of cancer are going to bring the tumor that is AAA gaming in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
I'm more and more like, I was trying to think, like, what was the last AAA game that I gave money for? I can't remember. And like, there's a really good chance that I don't ever pay money for another AAA game again.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just kind of over that whole sphere of video gaming.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many good experiences you can get.
Yes.
That means not giving your money to these AAA companies and not paying $60, $70, $100 for a game. I'm playing fucking Valheim again. I got 300 hours of this game. I pay like $20 for it.
Yeah.
So completely off tangent. Apologize, but
no, that's
kind of where I'm at. I hear this stuff. It's like, you make a lot of sense, and it's like, this literally just sounds like various types of cancer fighting over the last scraps of fucking capitalism. Like, we don't have that much time left.
At the end of the day, there's just like good developers making good games out there for cheaper than what you can buy your AAA games for, especially since most of them are going to $70.
Yeah, you got any opinions on all this big league fucking rock'em sock'em shit?
I don't know, man. I play them AAA titles. Yeah. Like, I'm looking forward to Starfield. I'm going to play the shit out of that when it comes out. I suckle at the teat of whatever fucking Bethesda offers me every fucking time. So,
did you buy 76?
I did not. I did not suckle at that teat.
That teat's dry.
There's one teat in particular.
That's the dusty teat.
No, it's
like. So, I don't know. Microsoft, for me, sure, they're the fucking evil company. I was born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s. I know what Microsoft is.
Yeah, we know what they done.
Like fucking
We did not forget Bill Gates.
Yeah. Monopoly is a game. They're trying to rule the fucking world, right?
Yeah.
Like Monopoly doesn't mean much to them. I think Microsoft has licked their finger and stuck it in the air, and they see where not just this industry, but industry as a whole, I think in this country is moving back towards unions, and why not be ahead of the game on that? In the long run, it's going to make them more money.
Yeah.
It's gonna increase the brain power that they have there. It's going to make workers happier because they don't have to fight the company to do so. They get a seat at the table, and they still make billions of dollars, enough to buy a $70 billion gaming company. So, I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, Microsoft might just be being like, oh, okay, well, extreme corporatist capitalism. Maybe we notch it down 1%, 2%, and yeah, we're the heroes. Here we go. I mean, still corporate overlords, 100%. But 2% better guy.
Tuppence.
You know,
I have a couple quotes here. This is from Brad Smith. This is Microsoft's president. This is the guy that we've been talking about quite a bit tonight. He says, "We believe in the importance of listening to our employees' concerns. Our leaders have an open door policy, and we invest in listening systems and employee resource groups that constantly help us understand better both what is working and where we need to improve." Blah, blah, blah. This is all corporate speak. But we recognize that there may be times when some employees in some countries may wish to form or join a union. We recognize that employees have a legal right to choose whether to form or join a union. We respect this right and do not believe that our employees or the company's other stakeholders benefit from resisting lawful employee efforts to participate in protected activities, including forming or joining unions.
We'll see if their words hold out.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like it's words, but
yeah, I mean, I don't know of any recent Microsoft unions popping up. We'll watch next
there was
year
we
or
actually
covered some.
We actually did cover 2, I think.
Yeah.
In the last month or so.
And funny enough, it was the communications.
The CWA.
The CWA, the same union that was doing the Raven Software unionization effort. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're now representing 2 additional unions in the Xbox.
I actually in that story, I believe the CWA worker contrasted Activision Blizzard versus the Microsoft one. Actually, they contrasted it as positive on Microsoft and negative, of course, at Activision Blizzard.
That's good to hear. I mean, I guess when you got that much money as Microsoft, you're like, yeah, fuck it, join a union.
Yeah,
That's
and and Microsoft has not been risk averse. They have made a lot of risky decisions in their corporate existence. This one, they may just see additional profits and revenue down the line. Like this may be a risk for them, but it seems to be one that they are willing to take, at least for the time being. So we'll see what that means for the future. But hopefully, what this means is, especially within the games industry, the gaming industry starts to see this and starts to unionize.
It's about time.
It's about time.
Tell me, comrade.
What
beats inside your chest?
An Atomic Heart.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Cliff Notes nutshell. There are 3 problems with Atomic Heart, and depending on who you are,
Putin?
these problems will affect you if they want.
And Putin. No,
the most important one I would like to talk about first, because we're gamers at heart. This game, I've read a lot of reviews, watched a lot of reviews, read a lot of comments. It's all over the place. There are some things that are good. There are a few things that are fantastic. And there are some things that are mind-bogglingly awful. If you remove everything else from the equation I'm going to talk about later, this is very acceptable from a first-time studio for the first-time game trying to punch way above their weight into AA territory, like, looking at AAA style games. The writing a narrative that's important for you is already topping charts as some of the worst to have ever been released ever. There are some major problems with game flow and enemy difficulty and things like that. Things that are stopping some people from playing the game. People not recommending the game because of them. On the other hand, there are a few things that are really, really interesting and really, really great. Notably, we have, if I had to nutshell it, it's a new studio, their first game. They're making design choices that a more tenured studio might not because of the risk.
Yes.
So, that said, do not expect a great experience. Expect a mildly novel experience that has some really fun moments and some extremely aggravating ones if you're going to play it. I do believe it is on Game Pass, so if you have that, you can try it for free. If I want to point out a few specifics, the melee combat is talked about as being great. The game runs fantastic, according to most reviews I read. A lot of them were looking on higher-end computers, but even still, how well it was running on those, I wouldn't be surprised if it ran well even on medium-weight computers.
Yeah, that's real quick. I just want to interject with two things. Is while most reviews are talking about how good the melee combat is, in a couple reviews, one specifically from Game Rant that I read, was that the melee combat was lacking and felt like it, like they never were making contact with the things that they were hitting.
Well,
and then
they're an outlier then.
They are
one of the only things that most people said was good.
They are, and they actually addressed that they are an outlier, but they also said that other people have this opinion, and they cited other articles of other reviewers talking about the game. So that was their experience, right? Was that it wasn't good. Yeah. The other thing is, what was the other thing that you brought up right after melee combat?
I could continue. So this game stylizes itself in the veins of BioShock, slightly alternate history. Soviets continued. They developed AI and all this stuff, and things are great until they're not, and the robots turn bad, right? I don't want to spoil anything. The game consists of a really janky overworld where you go from place to place into these underground, what amount to dungeons that are highly unique. Almost every one has a very stylized design to the level layout and the art design, to the point where some reviews didn't like it. It was so jarring to go from one scene to another. Other people were praising it as a really good pastiche of Soviet era design, where you have brand new, fantastic, top, state of the art buildings next to old brutalist architecture. So the dungeons themselves are some of the good parts, and then the overworld has massive problems, enemies constantly respawning, bullet sponges, it really only existing as a vessel to get from dungeon to dungeon. So yeah, overall, most of the reviews I read were either in the 7 to 8 range with stipulations, or in the 3 to 4 range with stipulations. Like I said, it was really hard to find any review that said, it was pretty good, right? Or, it's pretty bad. It's like, these things were fucking awesome, and the rest of this was shit. So, throwing that out there, from a gameplay perspective, expect to be frustrated, but there's also probably going to be things you like about the game if you play it.
I mean, we just saw here on the screen, for those of you just listening, he's swinging his axe into balloons and nothing.
And they don't react.
They don't react at all. No popping, no nothing. So
yeah, I'm sure there's probably a myriad of things that are probably feeling unfinished. It would be an understatement to say the development of this game is bizarre.
Yeah.
Well, it's stuff like that though that breaks immersion, and like for a lot of players, is really what breaks them out of the game. That sudden just crack from the world there.
Yeah, I mean, little things like that are important, especially in a final product. I've kind of gotten to the point where games like this, I never expect a quote-unquote final product, because games aren't finished anymore, in my opinion, when they're released.
Fair.
Yep.
But stuff like these boss fights, a lot of the boss fights we're watching one now, highly cinematic, highly stylized. More than one reviewer said that they stopped playing because they literally ran out of ammo trying to kill the bosses. They'd go through literally dozens of rockets of their power weapons and not be able to kill them because they're hit point tanks, like hit point soaks, and gave up on playing. So those are all decisions that semi-reasonably could be fixed in patches.
Yeah.
How many hit points an enemy has, how often they respawn, things like that. You know, if that wasn't a deliberate choice, it could be it just wasn't play tested well enough. So I just want to throw that out there. If all you care about is gameplay, do not expect anything close to BioShock or Fallout or that, in not only in terms of quality, but especially in terms of narrative and writing and storytelling and dialogue. It's like if Duke Nukem wasn't funny, right? I've heard some of the stuff. Part of it, I'm sure, is maybe bad translation, but it's really bad.
Is it a Russian studio?
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to get into.
Okay.
So, secondly, again, in order of importance, in my opinion, this game is protected by Denuvo. If you're not familiar with Denuvo, not really sure where you've been in the last 10, 15 years, but Denuvo is a digital rights management, DRM, program designed to keep the game from being pirated. In a nutshell, Denuvo is a moderately unique form of anti-piracy where the game has to call home the Denuvo servers and ask, hey, is this copy of the game legit? Therefore, yes, we can play it. When Denuvo originally came out, it was next to uncrackable. The first couple of cracks took well over a year for CMY, and there's a whole bunch of different cracking scenes that tried doing that. But they've gotten better over the years. Some cracks nowadays can take a day, the same day, a week, and these companies pay a good chunk of money. It's not a lot relative to game design. You know, some leaked agreements, documents, a couple $100,000. But there's two big problems with Denuvo. One of them is the game has to always be online. That is a major sticking point for a lot of people. If you do not have solid internet, it's, you know, you shouldn't be punished for not being able to have that, right? And if you have any kind of tenuous connection to the internet, these are the kind of games that you're not going to be able to play successfully because it's going to kick you from the game. Yeah. On top of that, it varies per game, it varies per scene, it varies per hardware, but Denuvo has been shown time and time again to impact performance. Anything from the executable adding half a gig of size due to all the Denuvo stuff, to FPS and loading times 5-10 times as long, 5-10 times, you know, losing 30, 40, 60 FPS in certain games when Denuvo is running. Wow. So Denuvo is its own problem. It's its own thing. PC gaming zeitgeist knows about it. You either really care about it, it bothers you, or it doesn't. Just throwing that out there. Third is a way more nebulous issue that I'm of a firm opinion you can have a nuanced opinion on, because there's a lot going on here. Yeah. Atomic Heart is made by Fisk. I can't remember the exact spelling. This is ostensibly a Russian company. They have done a few things that have raised some eyebrows, and looking into it, they have some connections that raise even more. To the point where the Ukrainian government itself is calling for a ban on sale of this game in Ukraine, because more than likely, profits of this game are going directly towards the war effort. Don't quote me, I'm not a journalist. I did my best to read up on this. But what it amounts to is there's very likely a strong connection between the executives of Fisk, who all are in Russia, who have recently set up a satellite company in Cyprus, ostensibly to avoid taxes, but it seems to be doing the exact opposite. And these execs are like on the board of Gazprom, the national media / propane gasoline company of Russia's government. They were asked at one point on Twitter whether they supported the Ukrainian war. And I think this is the stickiest wicket. If you are a Russian company and you live in Russia and your family lives in Russia, you can't give an answer to that question, right? That's really risky. So a lot of people have been falsely up in arms, in my opinion, about them not having a firm stance in the Ukrainian war. Same time, I just saw some screenshots. I took a picture. I can throw it up if you want to post it. In this game, there are little teasers like a yellow and blue can labeled pig meat. and drones carrying geraniums, which is like a nickname for the bombs that the Russians are dropping on Ukrainians. So whether they support the war or not, they took the time to put in teasers into this game that are direct attacks on Ukraine politically in a climate where Russia is actively at war with a country. This isn't politics. This isn't gamer culture. This is real people are dying because of Russia's choice to be at war with Ukraine. Munfisk is not killing people in Ukraine. They are a gaming development company. But there's enough ties there and enough signs that say there's a really good chance that if you pay money for this game, you buy it outright, your money is going to be used to kill people in Ukraine. So if that is important to you, I'm adding that to the pile of potential concerns. So just a quick recap. Game has some really cool things, also extremely awful other things. 2, it runs through fucking Denuvo. And 3, there's a lot of weird political sketchiness. So all this put together tells me that this is a really fucking kind of interesting, unique game in the situation it's in. It's not one I'm going to be paying money for. I probably won't play it due to the gameplay problems. I hope the developers do well. You know, I never want games to be bad.
For sure.
It is their first game. It's very, very impressive for a first game from what we've seen. But we went over the history of the game's development a little bit a couple months ago. It was sketchy at best back then.
They're storied.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Yeah. This, you know, it's also partially owned by Tencent and Gaijin Entertainment. So it's just a really fucking weird situation, and it makes me uncomfortable, and I'm choosing not to play it.
Reasonable.
Yeah. So that is roughly 2-3 days of reading and YouTube watching, condensed as much as I could and remember. If you do have Game Pass, it's not having Game Pass isn't supporting the Russian government. Don't feel the need to cancel your Game Pass. Give it a shot if you want. Like I said, you know, every form of media, it doesn't have to be good all the way through. You can take things from it. But don't feel forced to finish it just because of the pomp and circumstance around this game.
Yeah.
You know,
it's one that I'm still on the fence whether I want to play it or not. I don't feel driven to play it, but I do. It's one of those things where I would like to experience it based on. I'd like to be able to form my own opinion on it.
Yeah.
Is what I'd like to do.
So hearing that the storytelling in it is bad is rather disappointing because for BioShock, for Fallout, sure, the headcanon that I'm making for that particular character, but honestly, it's just good storytelling in those games.
that's one of their strong suits.
This is exactly one of their strong suits. So it's a little disappointing because I really like some of the visuals. Some of the visuals are very cool. Fallout reminiscent because it has that Soviet era feel, but it's definitely like future tech. So very cool, very cool. I like the visuals, but if I had Game Pass, I would give it a try. But this, honestly, with the shady connections and all that stuff, it goes on the list of I'm not giving my money to that. So I agree with you.
And that's why I wanted to lead with the game stuff. Like, even if you take the shady connections on the Denuvo side, it's not a 9 out of 10 game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Like, if I had to form an opinion having not played the game just based off the dozen or so reviews I've watched, I'd say it's probably a 6 or 7 out of 10. Like, I would not pay full price $60-$70 for a game that is a 6 or 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
There's games that are much better for a third of the price. Now, if it had good story and narrative and dialogue and exposition like BioShock and some of the Fallouts did, I would play a game with bad gameplay that has good story, but it doesn't. I don't remember any off the top of my head, but go watch some videos on the dialogue in this game.
It's pretty bad.
It's really bad. It's surprisingly bad.
There's been some that I've seen that's good, but I think that lends more to a good voice actor being able to do something with nothing than anything.
This is sort of diamond in the fucking rust. You're noticing it because everything else surrounding it is awful.
Yeah.
Like, you know how they had the Circus of Values ammo machines in BioShock?
Yeah.
So imagine if that robot was constantly hitting on you and asking you to fill it with your polymer every time you went up to it. Like, funny the first time. Oh,
Yes.
this robot's got the hots for my character. And then every time you go to your upgrade station, it's just like
You're being sexually
straight up
assaulted by a fucking
Eastern
robot.
European style asking you for your fluids.
Yeah.
Please, comrade, fill me with your polymer.
Yeah.
Yeah. On first meeting of this robot, it feels you the fuck up. Like, it really does. So it is, you're being sexually assaulted by your upgrade robot.
Yeah.
Soviet Russia, robot feels you.
Real quick on the points of Denuvo. Denuvo, I didn't know that it was using Denuvo. Denuvo scares me. Because it's an extremely aggressive DRM, and fuck that. That sucks. B, Denuvo has been the reason some games haven't been able to be haven't been playable on launch.
There's
Brings me back to
million
Assassin's Creed
stories.
Syndicate. Almost nobody could play that on launch because of Denuvo. It took like 3 patches in 2 weeks to get that thing playable for people on PC.
It's just, I love Steam's take on it. Steam, Valve, they basically said piracy is a problem with distribution, right? It's not a problem with the development. And we've got our own basic DRM. But you ask yourself, you're a company, you quote unquote know that the first week of sales are the most important. I'm not saying quote unquote because they're stupid, because I honestly believe that I don't think anybody can be entirely sure really how important that is. Now, if you're paying $100,000, $200,000 to get Denuvo for the first couple weeks of your game being released in order to protect sales, it's anywhere from 2,000 to 10,000 copies, vaguely from what I saw, that you're having to recoup in costs for Denuvo. Now, the problem is once Denuvo's out and you got it out there are reasons to then remove it later. Okay, the piracy window's over, sales are dropping. It might be infecting performance of our people who have actually played the game, like it's happened a million times, can't connect to the server, game can't launch. We'll remove it. But there's reasons once you have it to keep using it. When a crack team goes out to crack a version of a game, they're cracking a version of the game. So if you consistently put out new updates to the game, those updates need to be cracked wholesale, especially when Denuvo comes into play.
Yep.
So they continue using Denuvo because it assists that, right? But all this is predicated on the knowledge and the assumption that people who are pirating the game are only paying for it because it has Denuvo.
Yeah.
Right? In the past, when I pirated games, I didn't do it because it was easy to crack. I did it because I literally didn't have the money to pay for the game.
Yeah.
I don't care if you have DRM or not. I can't afford it. So I don't know how many pirates have that particular take on it. But given that there's been multiple situations, not all of them. Again, this is kind of a noticing bias. I'm sure there's been millions of times where people who have games with Denuvo haven't had any problems with it. But there's been enough times where the people who legitimately have bought copies of the game cannot play them either in part or in totality because of Denuvo, that the people who have pirated the game, they don't have those problems.
Yeah.
Right? And it's Denuvo's its own topic. It's
a whole thing. We could do a whole episode on Denuvo. But
Stardock and all those fucking
it's the whole idea of being so afraid of lose. It's like fucking of mice and men. Like, it's like, oh, I just want to pet the puppy. I just want to love it. They just love their sales so hard that they fucking crush them to death. It's like, how many returns did you get that first week of sales because the game didn't run? And it, like, that's all should be considered too, right? I mean,
if you put that $100,000, $200,000, $400,000 from Denuvo into marketing, would you recoup the sales that you've lost from pirating?
I don't think. I mean, I'm sure they have experts.
I guess. Again, I'm not a financials guy. I'm just here spitballing, but
you can't really tell. I don't think there's any real way to know you can't know exactly how many people are pirating your game.
Yeah.
And you can't know where and when and all that. You can guess and have good estimates.
It's not like the crackers are publishing their download numbers, So, but on the topic of Denuvo, as far as it comes to Atomic Heart, it doesn't seem like it. I mean, maybe it is impacting performance, but to Atomic Heart's credit, it does seem to work on a dearth of hardware very well. Yeah. And seems to be well optimized. It seems like they put a concerted effort into making sure this game was optimized.
Reviews is it runs pretty damn well.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that. I've been watching lots of it being streamed, and it's working on streamers will often have their setups in chat. It's working on GTX 1660s and 1660 Supers, 1050 Ti's. So you have to set your expectations accordingly for your system settings, but it's playable, right? 100% playable, decent FPS on older hardware. So that I'm a bit of an optimization snob because the longer gaming has been around, the less it seems any developer is concerned with optimization and is only concerned with.
I think it's an exponential problem.
Well, yeah,
the tech is more and more complicated.
Yeah. Right.
It gets harder, faster per moment.
Yeah.
To optimize because of the sheer
variety
of hardware and depth of technology.
Yes.
Like we just watched Ant-Man Quantumania. That I was talking to my brother, the visuals. Well, we were talking about the visuals of the movie. You showed me that 15 years ago, blow my fucking mind.
Oh yeah, dude, I would have lost my dick.
Yeah, where did it go?
Yep.
So, yeah, to Nuvo's side, I think if I was in a general person situation, last thing to say, if I already had Game Pass, I would probably try it. Knowing that there's going to be some really fucking frustrating stuff in the game. It sounds like some of the dungeons and art direction and world setting they do is really, really cool, and that might be worth it. But
well, if you'd like to, come over and give it a shot.
No, I got indie games to play.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know one of the biggest reasons I'm not playing it already is I'm too busy with Valheim.
Yeah.
On that note, you guys ready to call this an evening?
Mm-hmm.
All right, boys.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching, swatching and listening.
Listening.
Just thank you for being here with us. Hey, remember, if you want to talk to us, leave us a comment on the website. You can literally leave us a voicemail.
That's true.
Hey, I'd love to have another voicemail on the podcast.
It's modern technology.
It'd be my favorite.
Yeah, I want to listen to him personally.
There's no de novo.
There's no. Yep, nothing there.